Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I am going to be sharing how I created my Cal Kestis fanfiction stories. Writing is one of the biggest passions I have. It's actually a dream of mine to become a professional author one day in some way, even if I don't have a gig in doing Star Wars stories. If I create something entirely my own, that would just be amazing. But that's basically why I decided to create these stories, because of my love and passion I had for the game and the story that Respawn Entertainment created. I am the biggest bookworm you will ever encounter. I have read the Harry Potter series, I've read the Percy Jackson books, the Hunger Games, like you name it, I've basically read it. Now going forward, my first book is called Scars of Darkness, and that story takes place 2 years after the events of Fallen Order. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I will share the basics of how I created the stories and basically how they came to be. It's hard, like especially if this is your first time writing, these are some tips that hopefully will help you to create this story. So the way I approach it is I like to think of a book as an essay format. And that's probably going to sound super boring to most of you, but I promise I will explain this in simpler English for you. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and the end. But you can't create that until you create an outline first. And that's how I basically approached book one. I wrote an outline where I had the protagonist on one side and then the antagonist on the other side. So, like for example, Cal Kestis, Marin, Grease, BD1, and then on the opposite side, like Palpatine, the BT sentry droids, Imperial officers, stormtroopers, just something basic. And then I would have an original character villain on the antagonist side too. And then I cut it. Like here's box one, box two, and then underneath those two boxes are kind of little story notes. So like for example, like I'll say Cal is going to go through like this much character development, or like the mantis gets shot in this chapter, or this story happens here. Like I'm kind of all over the place because I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't read it. But I put down questions too, like how has Cal changed in the past, and how's he going to go forward in his Jedi journey. Funny enough, I know most people, myself included, wanted to see Cal and Marin's relationship develop, but I decided to do something different for the sake of my fanfiction story being original instead of just kind of copying Respawn's idea. I am a Cal and Marin shipper myself, so please, as I've said before, this is just for the sake of my story. I made Cal fall in love with a different girl. I don't have concept art or anything, I just made her off the top of my head, but her name is Annika Jello, who is also a Jedi who survived Order 66. But I added a little twist because she doesn't know she's a Jedi, because when her parents were killed, she was around the same age as Cal, but her perspective was different than his. She believes that the Jedi killed her parents because of the point of view she saw. She lives on Coruscant, and that's where Cal kind of runs into her because he's curious about the city, but also he's looking for kind of more Jedi survivors. Cal has to unlock the secrets of a Sith holocron that Seer believes Eno Cordova left for her to unlock on the Jedi Temple. That's all I'm gonna say for now on that story. If you want to know what happens next, you are more than welcome to click the link below and read that story. Now, the second book was really fun to work on. That one is called Secrets of the Past, and I actually brought Obi-Wan Kenobi into the mix. So Obi-Wan actually goes on this big adventure with Cal and the Mantis crew, with Annika now, and it was just so much fun to play around with. This was also around the time I wrote this, around the time when the Kenobi show was out and the first teaser trailer had just dropped for Survivor, so I didn't know anything about the story going forward, so I kind of just improvised with what source material I was kind of given. And ironically enough, I kind of predicted a lot of things that happened in Survivor if you read the book. The timeline for Secrets of the Past is 3 years later after the events of my first book, which is a total of 5 years. So it's lining up with Survivor's timeline. The topic in the second book that I kind of tackled in this one was Palpatine's experiments that he was doing with the Jedi, which was the force transfusions or blood transfusions or midichlorian transfusions, whatever they were. If you know, you know. And also I threw in the Grand Inquisitor into the mix to be a threat, and I also I made my own spin on the guy in the Bacta tank from Survivor, which is soon to be known as Dagan Garab. Again, this was before the story trailer was dropped and we didn't know much about his character, so I kind of just made him my own, that he was a Jedi that was experimented on, and I don't want to give too much away again for spoilers, but that how he gets thrown into Cal's story is quite the twist. You're in for a ride. Last but not least, the third book I am currently working on as we speak is called Rebirth. I am actually doing a collaboration on this book. My buddy Wes is going to be playing Cal Kestis, doing the voice lines for him, and my buddy JT is going to be playing Palpatine, and he's going to be the main antagonist, Aiden. I also just dropped my first trailer or teaser trailer for the story, featuring Wes and JT's and my voices, or my voice, all of our voices, you get what I mean, in the trailer. So at this point in the story, it's a lot darker, the stakes are even higher, and the challenges that Cal and the Mantis crew go through are gonna be even crazier than you can imagine. The story continues as Cal Kestis desperately fights to stand against the Empire. However, the odds of surviving have only become more perilous. With the weight of the galaxy resting upon his shoulders, Cal struggles to balance the expectations of being a Jedi Knight while keeping the legacy alive. The only question is, how far is he willing to go to protect the ones he loves? That's all you're getting from me for now, but I hope it's getting you guys hyped up and a little excited to see what's next for Cal and the Mantis crew. The whole reason why I even created this trilogy is because I love this story so much, and again, at the time I wrote this when Fallen Order was the only source material I had. Survivor was barely coming out at the time, so I just wanted to see what I could do to make Cal's story interesting from a fan's perspective. But also, I love books. I love writing. Again, this is my passion. It's what I do. It's why I was confident enough to get back into YouTube and promote my stories here and share it with you guys, and hopefully find more fans in the Fallen Order fandom that love it just as much and are entertained by this trilogy I have created. Over the last 4 years, as I've written these books, I have discovered so much about myself as a person, just from these games and writing and having the guts to put my work out there, because what I'm doing is pretty risky. But I don't let the fear of that deter me away from putting my work out there, or even continuing to write stories and push myself to become better at it and become more creative on YouTube as well. Because if you don't put yourself out there, or just in life in general, how are you going to grow and develop? You never know unless you try. If you're curious to read these books and hype yourself up for Rebirth, I will leave a link in the description below. As always, my Padawan learners, may the Force be with you, always.